the NBA free agency. And guys, I mean, with the signings of what we saw from with the older age guys that they brought in with Wayne Ellington and Dwight Howard, and just basically going ahead and trying to see how many different Kent Bazemore. I mean, this team, it's really old coming in here. So Spencer, I ask you, where can the team get younger and more athletic?
Summer league. I don't know. That's actually.
I mean, you be banking a lot on Joel Ayayi, and Austin Reeves is not an athletic guy. So
the two ways, man, the two ways. That's where we get more athletic.
I mean, yeah, you're really asking a lot at that point. You might
Jared Dudley
off the board, but like someone like a Sterling Brown, he's kind of in the mold of like Torrey Craig, where he was young, athletic, and you could take a flyer on him for the minimum. Obviously, he's not an actual target anymore. I don't know. It's tough because the players you're going to get on the veteran minimum are veterans, right? They're going to be older players, and you just lost your one of your young assets in Alex Caruso. So it's tough when you have 3 max contracts, 1 taxpayer MLE player, and the rest are vet mins. It's getting a trade for younger players just difficult inherently.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be very interesting to see. But yeah, Jamie, as we're coming on now, I forgot to turn it on earlier. That was my fault, so I apologize for that. I'm so tired now. It's a long day for us right here. But J. John Cerceda, thank you so much for watching. We always got much love for you, my friend. I hope everything is well where you're at. The Lakers, again, they, in free agency, they let go 4 years, $37.5 million to the Chicago Bulls. That is the GOAT, Alex Caruso. He heads that way. In return, the Lakers have managed to go ahead and have a $9 million trade exception that they'll go ahead and finish out, hopefully, at some point in time in the season. I know Jay John is very upset about Alex Caruso leaving. In return, the Lakers, as we mentioned before we left our afternoon show, Trevor Ariza had just signed with the Lakers on a 1-year minimum. Wayne Ellington has signed right after on a 1-year minimum. We also had Dwight Howard. He re-signed on a 1-year minimum. And to not buck the trend on Lakers returning to Lakerland, Kent Bazemore also signed for 1 year on the minimum. As we talked about before during the interim when we were not on the air, I think right now seeing Otto Porter Jr. with that incredible deal of 1 year on the minimum, Cameron Payne re-signing with the Phoenix Suns, 3 years, $19 million. That was a steal. Bobby Portis, I think, what was it, 2 years, 9, or is it 2 years, 18? It's something where it's a relatively low value for Bobby Portis and for his contributions as well. Those are 3 of the big deals that stood out to me as far as some of the saving graces. And I'll tell you what, with the Lakers, they got a lot older, but in your mind, Jamie, did they get any better?
I mean, I think they got more professional again. I think that we saw the Lakers veer away from the super professional team they had with Danny Green and so on and so forth. Rondo, Howard, McGee, Markieff Morris eventually, Avery Bradley, Danny Green, I think I already said. But I don't know that we got better. We feel like this is like a lateral slight step back, to be honest. We got really old. The Caruso trade exception is actually, I think, for $8.3 million.
Okay, so it's $8.3 million. Okay,
it looks like there's some weird rules surrounding it. So it may be more like you were thinking, Gerald, a little less useful than maybe we're talking about earlier. Just to be clear.
I mean, like you said, the Lakers got older, and again, I think it's a lateral move at best right now. I mean, it all depends on if you can get some better pieces. You still have that $5.9 million trade exception. Right. You have a couple more slots left. You could throw at people for minimums. I mean, we mentioned Lauri Markkanen, Patty Mills as far as possible options. Lauri Markkanen makes you younger, taller, a little bit more athletic, and he can shoot the 3. Then you also have Patty Mills, who's just hooping it up again in Australia. So Those are some options right there. I'm looking at the free agent chart on Sport Track on who might still be available. Anybody that sticks out to you, Jamie?
Can you put it up so we can check it out?
I'm going to go ahead and do that right now for you and do that and share this on the screen. I mean, Dennis Schroeder, he sticks out.
Taylor Horton Tucker.
I know that was bad. I'm sorry. But
no, but he does
the Lakers
out.
probably will have to sign him if to get the kind of money he wants and do a sign and trade.
Right.
But if you're watching on television right now, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Facebook, you get to see right now who's available. I mean, Kawhi Leonard, he's most likely going to with the Clippers. Maybe he's allowing the Clippers to go ahead and sign some talent first. DeMar DeRozan is still available. He's been heavily rumored all over the place, from Miami to Dallas to all over the Knicks. Otto Porter Jr. should not be on there. He did sign for 1 year at the minimum, one of the best deals that's out there for Golden State. Something that Spencer mentioned earlier is Victor Oladipo. Would you be happy if he's healthy that Victor Oladipo came over?
If he's healthy, yes.
That's a big if. That's a big if, I know. Spencer, I mean, you talked about, like I said earlier in the day, that Victor Oladipo could still be available. I mean, is he a possibility for the Lakers at this point with that 5.9?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't spend 5.9 on him because I think at 5.9, I need a proven commodity, which he isn't at this point. But at the minimum, I could, if you squint hard enough, you convince yourself his rehab's going to go well.
I'm squinting my eyes as hard as I can, my friend. It's not just because of the fact I'm tired. It's the fact that, it's, trying hard, my friend, trying hard.
I think the idea of him's great. I mean, that's why the Heat traded for him, obviously, at the deadline. He's been bought low on, I guess you'd say, by the Heat, and the Lakers could do the same thing.
He was looking to cash in. When he was playing in Houston, he was looking to cash in. And I know Laker Tom was infatuated with him at that point in time, even though he was like a high-volume, low-percentage shooter. I mean, if you're able to get him on the cheap on a 1-year minimum, similar to what we see with Otto Porter Jr., I'd say let's go for it. But, he's still thinking of himself probably at a higher stature from there. For me, like I said, Lauri Markkanen is still someone out there that could be someone that could be available. Spencer Dinwiddie, it looks like we're negotiating heavily with the Washington Wizards, which could throw Dennis Schroeder's plans out the window because he's running out of places. Dennis Schroeder, he's running out of places to sign for any kind of big contract without some help from the Lakers.
His biggest hope was that Derrick Rose would want to go somewhere else.
That didn't happen.
No, and that didn't happen. And he doesn't want to play backup.
And New York has virtually filled up its cap. Dallas has filled up its cap.
Right.
Almost every other team that had cap space has filled up the cap. Who may still be outstanding, like Atlanta, I think, and maybe one or two others. San Antonio may still have some space, although they signed quite a few individual players, rotational players. So I think giving Doug McDermott that kind of money, I think was okay, but that's quite a bit of money for someone that's going to be your 8th guy, 7th guy off the bench, and then you've got other players as well for San Antonio that doing all right on that as far as the signings are concerned. But I don't know at this point. Dennis Schroeder needs a lot of help in order to become a 4-year, $80 million guy. And so I have a feeling now that the Lakers are in more of an advantageous point. Don't you think so? Don't you think so, Spencer? I mean, right now it looks more and more like the Lakers will be able to pull off a sign and trade with Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like, the cap space is drying up quickly, and I think this is like supply and demand saying that Dennis Schroeder's not a starting point guard on a contending team like he wants to be.
Right.
He's a 6th man on a contending team, I think. I think that's just what the league's kind of sending a message right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
He may end up settling for somebody's who's going to MLE hard cap them for themselves for sure at this point, right? Like, why put yourself in a hard cap situation? he should fire his agent or whoever was advising him to not take the $20 million extension that the Lakers offered him, because I don't know what he's thinking at this point. If you didn't have something lined up like minute 5, you were blowing it. Like,
well, and that comes down to right now some options that are left for the Lakers. Again, Avery Bradley could be an option. I know that's been talked about already by us as to just continue the trend of former Lakers returning home to the Lakerland. So why not? Let's go ahead and bring him there. Wesley Matthews, I'd love to see him come back because I really liked what he offered, even at 34. He'd fit right in. Actually, he wouldn't be the oldest guy on the block on the Lakers team, not even close. One name that I think that's out there that's very interesting is John Collins, who we mistakenly had traded earlier. Right. At least Sean Grice did, and it was like, hold up, Sean. But George Hill, again, like we mentioned earlier, he was waived by Philadelphia. He is 34. Is that correct, Spencer? Or 33-ish? He is in that mid-30 range, which fits right in with the Lakers' plans. I mean, he's an outstanding three-point shooter, but really, what can he give you more than that at this point?
Oh, I just looked at it from the standpoint of, like, he can play off or on the ball, and he's a backup point guard, which we don't have. That's just another name, though.
Well, the backup point guard you could say is LeBron James, so that's kind of, it's kind of a thing that you could say. In essence, if you want to have him play still 10 to 15 minutes at the point each and every game. But you're right. George Hill could be someone that could play off or on the ball. I would just say, does he have another year from him? And that's pretty much what all the guys at the Lakers signed. Do they have another year at some kind of productivity level that's going to be commensurate with the championship in them?
Right.
I'm worried about that, Jamie. I mean, do you?
Yeah, you have to look at this group and say there's nobody whose ceiling is questioned, right? There's no question about anybody who we brought in. So, is it? I honestly think this is what this season is going to come down to. Is Frank Vogel as good a defensive coach as perhaps the roster that he's had for him? What's that input going to be? And also, is Anthony Davis going to have an MVP season? Because that's what this roster is basically built around. Like, Anthony Davis is going to have an MVP season. LeBron's got a solid 18, 10, and 7 to 8 in him, and Russ is Russ. Yeah. He's going to get he's going to average a triple double somehow, even on the Lakers, right? Like, I'll bet $25 right now that Russ Westbrook will average a triple double even on the Lakers.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's just something to behold, the amount of money that's just flying all over the place. I mean, my gosh, tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of $1 million lined up all over the place. And let me just do this rundown again live now that we're back on the air. And since we left you, I guess the last thing just before we left was the Lakers signing Trevor Ariza to a 1-year deal. So I'm going to go once again from Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania on their combined Twitter handles. So we're, again, the last thing that we left you on before we went off the air during the afternoon portion of the program was that Trevor Ariza did sign for a 1-year deal. So that's going to be something that the Lakers, they're going on that trend. They started on that trend of signing older guys. Dwight Howard signed with the Lakers right after. Then you had Solomon Hill, the LeBron killer, signing a 1-year deal with Atlanta. Then you had, right after that, you had Evan Fournier signing a 4-year, $78 million deal with the Knicks. Nicholas Batum signing a 2-year deal to return to the Clippers. I think that's a good deal, especially the way he played for the LA Clippers last season. Derrick Rose signing for 3 years, $43 million. Then you had Alex Caruso, again, as we said before, signing the 4-year, $37 million deal with the Chicago Bulls, which gave the Lakers a $8.3 million trade kicker. So hopefully they can use that trade exception somewhere. This one, as I told you guys, and you guys took a chuckle at this, Daniel Tice what is Houston doing, signing him for 4 years and $36 million? I don't get it. But
that's the Mozgov move of the year, baby.
yes, but kudos to his agent, Michael
Right.
Tillum and Aaron Mintz of CAA. They did a great job in hoodwinking, Houston in doing that. My gosh.
Who was Timofey's Mozgov? Do they have the same agent?
Who knows? Who knows? We'll have to go back, look in the backlog for that one. But Cody Zeller signed with Portland. Then we had the Victor Oladipo talking about his trade exception. But Reggie Bullock signed a 3-year, $30.5 million deal. PJ Tucker signed for 2 years, $15 million with the Heat. Reggie Bullock signed for 3 years, $30.5 million with Dallas Mavericks. Then you had Garrett Temple signing a deal with the Pelicans, a 1-year deal. Then you had Devontae Graham signing with the Pelicans for 4 years, $47 million, which is a pretty good steep price out there for someone who can definitely shoot it the way Laker Tom likes it. Norman Powell in a Duncan Robinson deal got a 5-year, $90 million deal. Then you had Kent Bazemore signing the 1-year deal with the Lakers. Dwayne Dedman, cheers for him. He re-signed with the Miami Heat for a year, which is, our good friend Rafael Barlow. He helped work him out, get him back in shape. And you had Max Strus returning to the Miami Heat on a 2-year, $3.5 million deal. Rashawn Holmes, who was much talked about as a center who did really well last year for the Sacramento Kings, re-signs for 4 years, $55 million. Then you had Semi Ojeleye signing a 1-year deal with the Bucks. Trae Young and also Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, agreeing to 5-year maximum rookie extensions, $207 million for Trae Young, $172 for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Gabe Vincent signed a 2-year, $3.5 million deal to Miami. Spencer Dinwiddie is negotiating heavily with Washington, so he could go there, which would make it harder for Spencer Dinwiddie. And then you had the 76ers are planning to waive George Hill. So that gets you up to speed on NBA free agency as day one closes. I want to thank so much everyone out there for just being here for us, being here with us, and your great comments and your appreciation of all the support. But I'm going to go ahead and get some closing thoughts from you, Spencer. First off, what are you doing at medium.com/basketball-university? You're going to be talking about a lot about the winners and losers of free agency and your overall thoughts on the day itself.
Okay, so I'm still digesting the Russell Westbrook trade, and my downtime between episodes of the show, I'm almost 90% done with my thoughts on the trade. In terms of winners, I think overall we just saw a lot of continuity. I think with a lot of re-signings. I think you alluded to it earlier, but there were some bargain deals like Bobby Portis, Campaign, and
Otto Porter Jr.
I think the Lakers I'd give them a C, I think, to be honest, because I don't know how many Lakers fans watch Sixers games, but Dwight Howard's turnover rate was god awful in Philadelphia. He picked up I think a league leading number of technical fouls. His personal foul rate was pretty awful too. So he was unplayable in the playoffs basically in the second.
And you could have just bet on at least one bad pick a day, each game, that he's going to get an offensive foul from because he can't set a pick right.
Yeah, I mean he gets a tough whistle, but yeah, he's turnover prone and he's foul prone. So I like the Dwight Howard signing. I think in hindsight, I'd rather have kept him than spending a full MLE on Montrezl Harrell. But I still think come playoff time, he's a 1-shift or a 2-shift player.
Yeah.
Kent Bazemore, obviously, I'd rather have Otto Porter Jr. and every day of the week.
Every day of the year.
Yeah.
All the days.
Wayne Ellington, I think it's good. I think he's better than Ben McLemore, who went
but
to
he's
Portland.
35?
Yeah, McLemore was much younger.
McLemore is younger, but he's also more
But
inconsistent. So
streaky,
yeah, I think it's
yeah.
fine. And
But I
who's
think
the
it's
last player we signed? Who am I missing?
Oh, you're missing Trevor Ariza,
Trevor Ariza,
the oldest, I think, of all this entire group.
easily.
Yeah, he's the oldest, but I think he's defensive wings for the minimum. I think he was a good option there. You know, in the second round of the playoffs, there's like this graph made by Kirk Goldsberry of ESPN that went viral, and it was that Giannis is one of the best Kevin Durant defenders in the NBA, like statistically, but he never guarded Kevin Durant that series. I looked at the graph, and Trevor Ariza is one of the best Kevin Durant defenders over the past decade. So that was interesting, and you got him for the minimum, and he can shoot corner three, so I'll take it.
Well, he's not as high as people think he is. He's like, what, a 34, 35% 3-point shooter at this point in time. So we'll see how, if he can at least give us that, or maybe 37, and maybe stretching it out there. Hopefully he can do that. Wayne Ellington, if he can shoot 42% like he did in this last season, then he's pretty much an asset for us if that's the case. Then you're talking about Kent Bazemore, who is a wild card in all this. Hopefully he can stay anywhere near above 35, in that 35 to 40 range, as far as being able to stay on the floor if he can shoot that well. And then Dwight Howard, like you said, who knows what you're going to get from Dwight Howard at this point. Before I give out my grade, because Spencer has already given out a C for the Lakers on free agency as of day one, Jamie Sweet, your thoughts and your grade for the Lakers on day one of NBA free agency.
Yeah, I mean, C feels pretty fair. I could see a B minus if you look at the fact that there's still the potential of some sort of shooter sign and trade.
Well, I'm not counting that yet. I'm only counting
just by today. I feel like C is fair.
All right. Well, I've got a little bit less grade than that. But before we get to my grade, what are you doing at lakerholics.com with your 5 things?
Now it's it's going to be 5 things we'll miss with Alex Caruso walking out the door. But that's the problem. So I feel like today was all about building up a little bit of potential for things on down the line. We already ruined the draft with our Westbrook trade. Maybe we didn't want to also ruin NBA free agency and just piss everybody off. Is my hope, but I'm working on a couple of 5 things, and hopefully we can get something out of this exception here before free agency ends. But I don't think that's a very long window.
I'll tell you right now, as I was talking to Spencer on that, I mean, if Otto Porter had been signed for the minimum, that's an A right there for you. That's an A. That's an A for Golden State. So kudos to them. For us right now, as it stands, and I'm hoping it turns around, and this time tomorrow night or any night after, the next time we go on, I can say that it's going to turn around and be a much better grade. But if I was teaching it fairly, and I try to be as fair as I can and looking at it objectively as I can, as a humongous Lakers fan, as a lifelong Lakers fan, I know I got a lot of junk thrown at me last year when I didn't think that the Lakers by leaps and bounds were much better or did much better. I think everybody was praising Gasol. I think maybe there was a couple that were because of his playoff performance in the bubble, and they were still praising the Gasol signing and praising the Harrell signing, and thought this was going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And Schroeder, thought Schroeder's signing was okay, and it just didn't work out. But I think right now I'm going to go with a D plus at best. I think this team just got older, and it was the oldest team in the NBA, and it just got older. I mean, that to me is just absolutely head scratching. Signing a Wayne Ellington to come off your bench, okay, I can see it, but to go for Dwight Howard, to go for
doesn't Wayne Ellington start on this team? Don't you think?
That's the problem. You start any of those. If you start any of those 4
isn't he
guys,
the starting 2 guard at this point? Wouldn't you argue?
If you start any of those 4 guys, you're asking for trouble, and that to me is the problem, because it's not 5 years ago, it's not 10 years ago, it's not 2017 where these guys maybe could have helped you more. It's not 2013 where these guys could have helped you a lot more. So I'm right now, I'm going to say the Lakers have got a D+ for me. And I think Rob Pelinka, even if you throw in the Westbrook trade, even if you getting rid of Caruso and letting him walk, and hearing all the other deals that are out there that you could have gotten campaign, you could have just spiked up a little bit more and got him for the minimum, the 5.9 is not the minimum, but the mid-level exception, the 5.9 a year. I would have been a great pickup for the Lakers at 5.9 million personally. But you know what? It is what it is. And I'm just going to say right now, D+ right now for me. So guys, any thoughts? Am I being too hard? I know Laker Tom would tell me glass half empty, glass half empty, glass half.
As a lifelong optimist, I think you're grading. I think the Westbrook. If you throw Westbrook into this, I bump my grade up to a B-. To be honest, I meant just for today we got a C.
Well, would you still keep it around the C range, Spencer? Because you and I were both so hard on the Lakers for the Russell Westbrook signing.
I'd probably keep C or C+. I don't know. I guess my grade for today would be changed if we got Carmelo Anthony, Rudy Gay.
Right.
Two more very young individuals. There you go. That can't play defense very well. So yeah,
but bring in more size than Ellington, Bazemore,
and they shoot the three. You're right. Melo can get hot from the outside, and then we know Rudy Gay once. I think he was close to 50%, not this season, but the previous season before. So he can hit from the outside. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something that I was hoping for better selections, and they're still out there. So I don't know. Right. I hope the Lakers can really take a second look at some of these guys. But, signing any more 30-plus-year-olds, that's a hard deal, man, when you sign 4 already. And you've already got what? Okay, let's count out before we head on out. Let's count out how many 30-plus-year-olds that we have on the team. LeBron.
I think it's the whole team.
No, AD is 29. AD is 29, right?
When's his birthday?
Yeah, well, no, he just turned 29, I thought. Okay. So, yeah, but he's closing in on the big 3-0. Yeah. Forget about it. Because it's just giving me a headache after.
You're just gonna bum yourself out. Listen.
Yes.
The thing isn't to just think about the age. It is experience. It's experience and it's playoff hungry. It's a lot of guys who have either tasted a little bit or come up short.
But what happens when you're older, my friend? You get slower, you get more injured.
Yeah, but that's this is where Rob's asking about that Frank Vogel extension. Like, show me what you got, Frank, with your defensive schemes. And the season's about those two things at this point, because it's not about our. And Westbrook,
well, this is not about the regular season to me. This again,
we got to go through the regular season.
If LeBron and AD are healthy, they can. Us three can go out with them, and they'll win 45 games. I mean, come on, it's just
maybe 62.
Okay, well, 62. There you go. But this team is going to do well in the regular season. I'm not disputing that. If the Lakers are healthy, with LeBron and AD healthy, and they go through a full season, and AD has the kind of season that we all know he can have, and LeBron has just another LeBron season
that he has to have.
I mean, and Westbrook gives you anything of what he can do, like how he played towards the end of last season. I mean, this team is going to win 55 games easy, if not more. It's just the fact with the matchups and who you got and who you can defend against. And we all know with Frank Vogel, he is so focused on the defensive end. And if the guys you send out there just can't stay in front of the younger players, that's going to be a problem come playoff time. That's what I'm worried about. That's when I see all these older individuals coming to the Lakers team. You say experience, I say age, and that's the problem I have.
I agree. I'm not trying to discount one and overinflate the other, but with one comes the other, right? Like it's a pro and a con. We have to just hope at this point that the weight of experience is more dense than the weight of age at this point.
Well, we'll see what happens indeed. But guys, if any big news comes across tomorrow, we'll go ahead and jump on again tomorrow evening and recap that. But for right now, it's been an incredible day. I do want to thank again the viewers and the listeners. We had hundreds of viewers on our Facebook the first time around, Lakers Fast Break, the first video that we did. So I want to thank you so much for doing that. Laker Tom was a great trooper being here for 2 hours. Sean Grice tried very hard and finally was able to break through with his connection. So I'm very thankful for him being part of it. Spencer, you've been terrific all day, and I cannot thank you enough. You've been a trooper at being here, and it's 1:00 in the morning where you're at. So really appreciate you being here. Jamie, you've been fantastic. You couldn't be here in a visual format or earlier, but you're here now. And of course, you were just great on the chat board earlier. Also, the biggest thanks again goes to you, the fans out there that watch us and listen to us right here at the Lakers Fast Break podcast. So if you have any questions for us, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com, at Lakers Fast Break. But the best place to go, or the best places to go, are once again Basketball University on Medium, and of course lakerholics.com. Be part of the conversation today at lakerholics.com. And a big shout out to the Hoopheads Podcast Network for going ahead and helping us promote the Lakers Fast Break to everyone out there. So day one of NBA free agency looks like it's in the books, although it's still going on strong. Check out our Twitter at Lakers Fast Break. I'll keep tweeting as best I can until I fall asleep and possibly pass out and die, and hopefully not, and maybe I'll be resurrected by the time tomorrow night comes around. So we'll see what happens. But again, it's been a great pleasure having everyone here for NBA free agency day one. Who knows what will happen tomorrow? There's still a lot of names out there. There's still a lot of chances for the team to go ahead and improve. And we'll find out if they can go ahead and improve tomorrow, maybe sooner. We'll find out right here at the Lakers Fast Break podcast.